Welcome. We had a lot of people listening to Monday's podcast. So I suspect there were some Dublin fans dazed and confused, some Meath fans basking, and people just interested, I think, in what's been bright start to the football championship. The FRC probably feeling pretty good about how things have gone down. We have the group stages. We have a quote-unquote group of death. Can it be a group of death when 3 of 4 teams go through? Maybe. We were touching, by the way, yesterday on Bits and Bobs. Aidan O'Hara had sort of said he feels like not many games are on TV at the moment, so like we're missing a lot of these big moments, these big games. Jamie did write in an email, which I should have put to Aidan. Listen to your Bits and Bobs conversation around Football Championship and the GAA Plus paywall. Sorry to reopen the dodgy box conversation, but as a 30-year-old sports crazy male in Ireland, every single one of my friends, colleagues, etc. who watch sport have a dodgy box and have access to GAA Plus. Keep the podcast coming. That is a fair point. That is a reality. Philly McMahon is one of those dazed and confused dubs in studio. Wow.
Indeed.
Wow. In broad terms, before we get into some specifics, are you enjoying the general fare on offer? Can the FRC feel good about what they've managed to cook up here?
I think when you see teams benefiting from the new rules, albeit Robbie Brennan, let's say, didn't like the rules at one point, Meath have definitely benefited from having big men around the middle and having really kind of, I'd call them dogs, getting under the breaking ball. They benefit massively from that. Other teams like Galway are benefiting from the kick out and stuff, you know. So, and then just teams benefit from the 2-pointers. And yeah, if I was the FRC, I'd be kind of going, right, okay, we're seeing teams now properly benefiting from this.
Mm. And do you think the supporter is seeing a more exciting game?
I think so, yeah. There is games obviously still that you're kind of like falling asleep watching, but there's games there that are bringing excitement to another level that wasn't there before. And I think we still have a little bit to go. We still have a little bit of space, particularly in the group stages now, where I know there's 3 that go through, but there's a little bit more on the line.
Yeah. I should mention, by the way, our GA coverage on Indo Sport is with thanks to AIB. They are at the heart of Gaelic games across club and county, and in 25 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, and with this championship shaping up to be more open than ever, they're more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. You can check out #TheToughest for more. One other point about actually the rules in broad terms is something David Goff said yesterday. He is finding a far more respectful atmosphere for referees, which I guess was good to hear. And you only had to look no further than Kieran McGeeney ashen-faced after giving away 2 points. Darren McCurry said, thank you very much.
Yeah, bit of a ridiculous moment, I think, for the new rules, to be honest.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Too far.
Stop taking the emotion out of managers on the sideline. Like, you know, obviously if he goes to a certain level where he's abusive to an official, yeah, of course. But kicking a flag, like, it didn't affect the game at all, like, you know. But it did, when the rule came in that they brought the ball up for a free for McCurry. Like, so there's a lot of people from that incident saying, well, what do we do? Do we want people to be emotive from the sidelines? Do we want people to be robots? We don't want to take that out of the game. I think give them a yellow card, maybe send them into the stands. I think that could be enough to make your point, having to impact the game by bringing a player up. Imagine losing an All-Ireland for that. Now, I would imagine a referee would not do that for an All-Ireland. And if he can't do it for an All-Ireland, then he should be doing it for like.
That's a good litmus test for any rule. Would you give that an
All-Ireland for an
All-Ireland?
Yeah. But you'd be devastated for you know. What would you be like? I think the rules are the rules. That's what happened, and I think McGeeney. I said this. I think McGeeney got away with it. Like, you know, he could have cost his team the chance to see what they're really about. Because in guards, obviously they're All-Ireland champions, but I can tell you the hurt they had from losing the Ulster Championship last year to Donegal and having another opportunity to make the wrongs right by playing them in the Ulster final is huge for Armagh. So them not getting the opportunity by him being emotional, it would have been devastating for him.
That one strikes a lot of people as Jim Gavin probably proposed that one. in the
Yes.
people sitting around? How do we clamp down on that kind of sideline antics? Feels like one he would have liked.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of a manager being emotive on the sideline, not emotional. I don't, as a player, I wouldn't benefit from a manager screaming his head off. I would benefit if my opposing manager was screaming his head off up and down the sideline. I'd be like, you're trying to do way too much for your team here. Whereas for me, a manager should be somebody that has done all the work prior to the game. And the role of the manager on the day then is to make sure that they can make the right changes in the right moments of the game from what they see that's coming down the line.
But you still want an allowance within the rules for someone to be like Davy Fitzgerald and to be colourful and to be part of the kind of the tapestry of what
It's
people
not what
like.
I would do. It's not what I'd like in my manager, but I don't see it being a problem that it should affect the on-field choices of the game or decisions of the game.
Yeah.
Like if you have a fella that is emotional on the sideline, and that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But it's very hard. It's actually very hard to make good decisions when you're emotional.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I wouldn't do it. But I don't think you should take it out of the game either.
Yeah. And 2 points potentially being conceded for your team, that's going to take it out of the game quickly.
But the biggest thing is, if you're saying to your players that your discipline has to be an all-time high, and yet you're the one causing a 2-pointer.
Oh, listen, next time he's talking to them about discipline, there'll be a few smirks.
They'll be laughing at him. And this is a guy that I would say is an unbelievably level of discipline because of his MMA background or his jiu-jitsu background, you know. But they dug him out of a hole. It could have been a very embarrassing moment for our man, for McGeaney.
Yeah. When you say with these rules, there's bits to go in different avenues, it really strikes me, I'm curious for your thoughts, that we're going to see if these rules stay as they are untouched in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, we're only at the cusp of the 2-pointer being utilised the way it should be utilised, because every sport across the board trends towards more aggression. Like in basketball, Steph Curry is the natural endpoint of the 3-point rule coming in. You think in golf now, aggression rules the day. There was a time where the wizened pros would say, no, listen, on this one, you find the fairway and then you wedge it on. Now it's like driver, aggression all the way, snooker, break building, safety play, fine ways. You know, it's aggression. Every sport trends in that direction. And I see something like Mayo do not utilise the 2-pointer enough. I would think in 5 years' time, we will look back on this season and someone's going to say, God, that was the year 2 points were being underutilised. Somebody could have committed fully to, we're a 2-point team. That's the way for us to win in All-Ireland.
Yeah, that's the organic evolution of it, isn't it? Because there would have been a point where maybe in the last 10, possibly 15 years where in coaching, coaches would have said, don't kick outside your 80% zone. And now players are kind of more reserved in their shot selection. And there's times where you're watching the telly, or maybe if you're working as a pundit on the game, you're going, shoot, and you're like, they're not shooting. Why? That shot was on. What's going on?
Because you lads and your conversion rate infected the entire sport.
Well, I wouldn't say so. I think their conversion rate was quite high, wasn't it?
That's what I mean. Because
okay.
You weren't allowed to shoot from here, there, and everywhere, and it was.
Well, I wouldn't say that, considering I was a corner back and I was allowed to shoot.
You guys were very judicious in where you took your shots from, but that's because wherever you shot from in the field, it was only a single point.
Yeah,
I suspect if it was worth 2 points, he might have thought differently about things. Jim Gavin, great thinker that he is, but I do think that's infected. Oh well, Dubs were very disciplined, even though, geez, if it was a club match here, I'd shoot, but it's county, I better cut back. I think that's really present in the game.
Yeah, it could be, yeah, but I also think that there is an element of probably. I look again, I'm assuming, but I would say if you looked at the stats when the game has changed to maybe when Donegal went more defensive, there was probably less shooting, you know. So you could put it down to that. You could put it down to like the Dublin team I played on, every bar maybe one or two, most could score, most could shoot. But then it's more so, right, okay, if you're taking a shot, are you able to hit 8 out of 10 of them in training? You know, because if you're not, then don't shoot from there.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, for me, when I practiced my shooting in training, I practiced right in front of the goal. Like I was literally like 15 yards out to the right of the post, left of the post. But most of my shots were actually outside of the D because I was running onto the ball, like, you know. So I've said this before, I would have loved to play the game, the 2-pointers today, because that's my zone.
Yeah. And I think you're right that players will get better now at shooting from distance. It's just who can actually get ahead of the curve here. Like, nobody was a Steph Curry when the 3-pointer came in, but they all get to that point. And I think, like, GAA, in 5 years' time, again, the rules stay the same, and certainly in 10 years' time, there'll be Rian O'Neills and Shane Walshes everywhere, because that's what the game from underage will promote. Does anyone jump out to you as the best long-range kicking team who could really kind of take a jump here forward? I don't have anyone in mind, by the way. I haven't seen a team where I've thought that's a 2-pointer team.
Yeah, I don't have the stats on it, to be honest, to see who currently is hitting the most.
I'm talking your gut, though, your eye.
Your gut.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. It's not factual. I don't know why Armagh sticks out in my mind. Like, you know, maybe it was when they dominated Antrim. Like, they've big players like Callum O'Neill. His score against Tyrone the last day it just looked easy. He just went, so to kick a 2-pointer, right? Most players will go through this process where they go, once I get the ball, I'm shooting. That's what happens. It's not, I'm going to pass. If I get the ball into my chest, in the position of where I'm going to be moving to kick the ball, and there's a player in front of me, I might think of a step ahead of that. I might go, right, I'm going to sidestep him and I'm going to kick it. To kick that from distance, you have to know before you get the ball, you're kicking that, right? So he got that ball outside the 45, I think it was. Now there's a player in front of him. He's looking at him. He goes, right, my habitually movement here is to drop the left shoulder, turn to me right and hook the ball over the bar. And Oisin O'Neill does it as well. All the O'Neills, they're all big kickers, like, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, yeah, I just think it's one of those things where, because we have a 2-point rule brought in, you might lose the impact of full forwards. You might have a lot of full forwards now starting to loop around and having duds going in. I don't mean that disrespectful way, but fellas that are more than likely to shoot going into the full forward line, and then these full forwards coming out and trying to get their little space that they can get a hook over the bar.
Maybe in the FRC's dream scenario, the 2-pointer will come to the fore now. We'll see these great long range kicks, and then defences will say, Galway become the best 2-point kicking team in the country. Well, then it's like you have to get out to them, at which point then little Gooch Cooper pop pass into somebody in a full forward line, and then it opens up goals as well. That's almost the thing in full bloom in maybe 5, 6, 7 years time. But
I can tell you now, teams are looking to expose every eventuality of the way they play now, because it's a new game. It's a total new game.
Well, I think the 2-pointer's the one. There's a million different things, but even like Brian O'Driscoll kicking those 2-pointers against Kerry, like, it just changes the game. That's the low hanging fruit here. You can double the score. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a massive. It can give you huge breathing space that a goal would normally give you, or it can give you. It can make sure that you stay in the game if you're a few points down. So, there's pros and cons.
What's that saving schemes if you're at the SSIA or something where the government would match your money?
I don't know.
Something like that. That's what this is. Me 23 points, Dublin 116. What's your main thought on Dublin after that?
Well, I've said before, I was impressed by their character this year in the league. Did 16 changes, did loads of leaders stepping away. Smalley coming back in is a good return. But they've showed at times throughout the league that there's vulnerability there, and I think that was exposed by Meath, in fairness to Meath. It was one of those games where I think a lot of people were going, right, Dublin will come back, but they were leaking way too much in defence. So the back six, you know, over years, because Dublin were so strong, you would have always had this narrative of, the fullback, you can get out to the fullbacks, you know, and the fullbacks, statistically, the fullbacks were doing extremely well. Really, a lot of players all-star decorated and stuff like that. But it was the kind of the bad pick of the bunch, like, go after the full back line. The back six for me have been, in a way, thrown in the deep end. And it's nobody's fault. It's not Desi's fault. It's not the defensive coach's fault. It's not the player's fault. It's what it is. They had to do that. They had held on to players, possibly like myself and Fitzsimons and other lads, for a long time, and probably didn't bleed enough lads in over time. Because a full back, just thinking about a full back, a full back needs probably two seasons at least to go in and find his feet and understand the dynamics. Wing back is okay to an extent because they're further away from the goal. Even psychologically, you being 1v1 inside, you have to have a calmness. You have to have a mindfulness of every time the ball goes up the other end of the pitch, right, that play is over. Your next play is trying to keep your man away from the ball. That play goes, right, of my next play. And if you have 20 plays, how many of those plays did I keep my man off the ball? If you got the ball, did I prevent it from shooting? If I prevented them from shooting, did I, help my teammates? Or did I protect the goal, right? So, full back is a very specialised position, all right? So having a player go in and maybe just, it's his first year, he probably got a little bit of time last year, it's very difficult for them. Very difficult, and particularly because you've a target on the back. They will go after you. So, Theo Clancy, Tyrrell, Davy Bourne, right? You're missing Keane Murphy, you're missing Lee Gannon. Smalley comes back in, who gives you a good option for a centre back. But that, who else are you bringing in and after that? Right? So, teams are aware of this. And what I would hope now is that the Dublin defensive coaches would look at that and go, right, okay, we are going to, in hindsight, be grateful for that spanking we got by Meath. And this will not happen again this year. No matter if they don't win an All-Ireland, they should defensively as a group, not only the back six, but the whole defensive unit from the top to the whoever the goalkeeper is, that they need to be better than that.
And what kind of things were you seeing? Because the full back line might chirp up and say, hang on, we didn't concede a goal here.
Yeah, but there were too many gaps, too many space, and too much space, and there was players exposed 1v1s, and that should never happen. You should, fairness to Tyrrell gets taken off at half time, I think, and very rarely a player gets taken off at half. I'd be pissed off if I was a full back that Tyrrell was taken off at half time. My teammate was exposed there. I needed to support him. But the problem was that was happening all over the pitch. There was fires happening all over the defensive structure,
Yeah.
But they probably weren't. What I would like in that Dublin defence is a bit more. This is not going to sound good, but someone that has a bit more of a bite about them. Someone that's going to, if you look at, I can't remember who it was. Paddy Small was bursting through the middle and he got milked. And in my Dublin hat, I'm going, how dare you, that's a free and you shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, that's what we need. And that's what we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
We don't have that grit. We don't have that someone to put fear into the opposing team.
A little bit too nice to play against.
Possibly, yeah. We used to slag the Rory and McFitz being in the full back and having the poshest full back line without me being in it, but that back six you need someone that's a dog in there, I don't see it.
I guess one of the worrying aspects is it's one of several problems. Stephen Cluxton's never had a day like it. The kickouts. Yeah,
I think that he's getting a lot of maybe stick for the kickouts, but for me, I think we lost the battle in midfield,
Yeah. Oh, I'm not putting it on him. I don't think he's lost the ability to kick it, but just with the new rules, especially against the wind, we touched on the one Monday. It's very memorable because when Con was on the near touchline and the ball is just taken into the wind forever to come down to him, and you can just see the Meath fella licking his lips.
Yeah,
Con's standing, hands in the air, waiting. So is a perfect storm. The wind, the new rules. Even I jotted down. So the first score was from kick out on 2 minutes, and then the fourth minute, it was so striking because it is such a throwback. And I know when you were on with Pat before, you don't love the kick out rule, but we are where we are. but it was so striking that it was 4th minute and 4 players, 2 from each side. It's like a picture from the 90s, hands in the air, like Willie Joe Padden style, trying to get up, and it's Costello for Meath who gets on it, and I think he gives it off to Frayne, and it's a 2-pointer. That sort of summed up a huge part of that game. Meath 2-pointers, losing the breaking ball, Cluxton just having no option but it's just harder, especially against the wind, to like fire it into somebody. A lot of fires, as you say.
Yeah, again, going back to the kick-out rule, and like I was kind of having a thinking about this. You know, you always want to have in a game a way to break momentum, right? And having just the determination to win the ball is not enough for me. Like it's you know, it takes away from the game. Like you can go, well, let's go and just be dogs and let's go and win the ball, but that's not guaranteed. So it's like I suppose it's like in soccer now. You see a lot of teams starting out from the back, and it creates a different dynamic, and it can cause problems and risk. But if you could imagine soccer going the opposite way now, where everybody gravitates to the side of the pitch and the keeper just keeps kicking along. Both keepers just keep kicking along.
Yeah,
it's a mess, and some people might call it a beautiful mess in terms of GAA because they're benefiting from it.
Yeah,
but there's a worrying part to this, is that people have mentioned about the 2-pointers can really build up a big gap in a game. And I think the kick out now we're seeing can build up a big gap in a game, because it's extremely hard to stop the momentum. A kick out, score, kick out, score, kick out, score. Very few teams can actually combat that. I think Donegal do it really well with Patton. His kick outs are very, very good. But he also has, structurally, they have a really good kick-out routine where 2 wing backs run down. It sounds simple, but then the opposition are worried about the long kick that Murphy's flicking on and that they can get goal chances from it. And what do? Do you go man v man? Do you go after Donegal, or do you go zonal? What do you do, right? But that takes a lot of time to build those structures and to be able to do those things. And I don't see many teams doing that. So what we might see in the game, the point I'm trying to make here is, what we might see in the game now is long periods of time where it'll be just a keeper kicking the ball out, generally the opposition winning the break or winning the ball in the air, attacking, getting a score or a wide, and the same thing happening for periods of the game.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic, because I understand totally where you're coming from. And it's a players and future coaches' perspective. This is a little bit less sophisticated. We've taken a little bit of a step from a coaching point of view into the dark ages of like, so sorry, our plan here is kick it and see who wants it the most. Are you kidding me? And I get it. And so if I watch sport to stroke my chin and watch the tactics, and in some ways I do at times, then this is less sophisticated. But if you want tension, chaos, entertainment as a fan, I've no idea what's going to happen here. Come on, someone win it. Then I can see how a lot of people are like, manna from heaven, give me more of this. So that's the interesting
let's hone in on that, give you more of that.
Yeah.
So then what happens? We say, right, okay, once you win the ball, just lump it in.
Oh, but we saw Meath. I mean, they won the breaks. In one instance, it was Costello, little shimmy, 2-pointer over the bar. Another instance, Costello won the break, came back, gave it to Frayne. Like it wasn't blind play when they won the break, and there were still the improvements of the last 20 years, which were good hands, looking for a pass. It wasn't like my eyes are closed and I'm booting this up in the air. But that initial fight was on.
But sorry, I probably should have articulated that better. So you're saying you love the rawness, let's say, of a kick out being lumped into the middle, and players and not knowing what's coming from it, the unknown.
Prefer it to the guaranteed possession, yeah.
Okay.
Do, yeah.
So then, with that thought, are you saying then, you know, you'd like more of that? Well, then why don't we just get the ball in the middle and just lump it into the full forwards, and let them conjugate in there and see if that's what you want?
Well, I suppose, to be fair to the attacking team, players are of a skill level these days where they, you know, quick hands, they can give passes, they can work scores. I don't mind watching that.
But that skill level can be used exactly in the same way for the kick out.
See, there's a balance to everything. So if you said to me, off the breaking ball, Meath would then put together 45 hand passes outside the D looking for a perfect scoring opportunity. I don't want that. Give me them just lumping it in instead of that.
Yeah.
I think what had happened with the kick out was it had just gone to extremes. And because, I mean, the beauty of these rules, I suppose, is because, to use your, let's go to your team for a second. Because Cluxton can't give it to you, and then if you need him, you can't fist it back to Cluxton anymore. Now teams are more incentivized to push up. I would never have pushed up in Dublin when Cluxton was the extra man. You guys were too good, too sophisticated. We're pushing up on an extra man here. In soccer, you can give it back to the goalkeeper. The goalkeepers have got very good with their feet. Whereas now, Cluxton gives it to Philly. That's our trigger because he can't give it back to Cluxton. We're on. And so,
But I agree with you. I think that should be. I don't think you should be allowed to go back to the keeper. I like that.
But maybe lose the arc one.
But get rid of the arc.
Yeah, do you know what? I'll shake for the so we don't have to talk about it again this summer. I'll meet you there.
Right.
Okay. And maybe that would have been the kind of the medium,
Yeah.
which is okay. He can't give it back to Cluxton, but he doesn't have to go outside the arc.
Yeah.
And let's see who's brave enough to really puch up. I'd be with you on that. Maybe.
I just think, like as a player, if I was playing against Dublin,
Yeah.
and you were to say, right, as a player, you want to be challenged. You want to have different situations and stimulus. Would you prefer just to be able to go, right, Cluxton's going to lump it down the middle, and for the reasons of winning a game, of course you would. You'd say, yeah, of course, I just want to go and win the ball and win the break, whatever else. That will work, and that's easy and that's simple. But I do think to be challenged as a sports person, to make something linear doesn't benefit you.
Yeah, I can see we've dumbed it down maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like the seals like me are clapping.
I know, I get it. And I have to take me bias hat as a player off, but I just think it's...
But Ethan Rafferty, 96%, lost one kick out against Tyrone. Now, I haven't gone through every kick out. I don't know what he did for all of them, but he was finding people. So it's a bit of a perfect storm. Like the win, particularly against Dublin, didn't help Cluxton in that first half. Are you... we'll come back to it. Let's watch it evolve over the summer and come back to it. Are you kind of the opinion that if that same game, same players, same everything had been at Croke Park, Dublin would have won?
No. I do think it would have benefited the kick out, of course. So you ask me that question, what makes you think that it would have?
Yeah. Home comfort, less raucous atmosphere.
Well, nobody's at home.
Dublin are home in Croke Park.
No, as in...
Oh, in Meath?
Yeah.
But Dublin would have had the comforts of home.
Yeah.
As opposed to, the Meath fans were a part of that atmosphere, I felt, in a much bigger way in Portlaoise than they would have been at Croker. Just had that kind of...
I'm going to say this, and it's maybe it's a bit ballsy. Like, I know of Meath fans that didn't go to that game because they thought Meath were going to be beaten.
I'm sure, yeah.
So the fans would have made a difference in Croke Park. I don't know. I honestly don't think it would. I honestly think Meath fans that went to the game would have went to Croke Park regardless. And the only thing that would have changed the energy in the Meath fans was the way Meath played.
No, for sure the way Meath played. But like 10,000 Meath fans in Croke Park are lost. Whereas 10,000 in Portlaoise, know what it's like, being on top of you.
But bring it back to the point before that. If Meath don't play the way they play, you're not getting anything from them fans.
True. If
Dublin play a little bit better and start dominating Meath, then all of a sudden the fans of Meath go, oh, here we go again.
You quieten them down, for sure.
So it's the denominator for me is Meath played a perfect game plan. Dublin underperformed.
Yeah.
If you do that same thing in Croke Park, would it have made a difference? I think the same thing would have happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do. And again, I'm being honest here. Like, I'm not saying there was obviously the thing, take them out of Croke Park. I've said over and over and over again, geez, I'm bored of saying the players themselves, it doesn't matter if they're taken out of Croke Park.
Well, with your team, it didn't. Whereas I feel this Dublin team, any small margin might help them. Your team, it's not even a question.
They have, well, in fairness, I stand corrected. If there is merit in what you're saying in regards to what we've seen this year, when Dublin were brought to Armagh, they struggled with the kick out. And they struggled with the kick out then against Meath. So that's probably the only thing I would have said the benefit of not playing in Croke Park. But if Meath still play the way they do and Dublin still play the way they do in Croke Park, the result is still the same for me.
You've touched on the defence, we've touched on the kickouts. The other thing which I found it's so strange to see it from Dublin players in those Dublin jerseys was the sort of sloppiness.
Yeah, they offensively, there was a couple of shot selections where you have players that are coming from a good place and trying to get them back into a game. Kenny kicking a big, trying to get a 2-point. All these things, they come from good places, but the problem is when you're kind of under pressure and you're underperforming, there is that, in a good way, selfishness where you try to bring the team back in, but actually has more damage to the team.
Felt like Kilkenny, but one of the 2-pointers felt, look, I'm a leader here.
I have to do it.
Sort of on, I have to do it.
Yeah.
On his left foot, I think one, skied it a bit,
Yeah.
But even the hand passing, the handling, silly things like that ball that was kicked backwards, but it goes over your man. That's against the wind, by the way. He's kicked that into the wind. He's really skied it over him. This kind of stuff that people would underestimate how sharp your team was at the basics under pressure. It's like these boys, it's just night and day. I'm sure they're trying to train at intensity and do what your team did, but they weren't at it. They just weren't.
Yeah, but it's hard to say that's the way they are, and comparing them to us. But listen, this is only one game. They've shown against Armagh, they struggled, particularly on the kick out, but came back, didn't obviously get over the line. Other games like Kerry, they struggled, big wind, come back and beat them. But for me, this is one game. This is a game that most didn't see coming. They didn't see it coming.
See, I didn't see it coming because I didn't think Dublin would be that bad, actually.
There's a lot of people possibly in Dublin that might think that was coming. That there was an underperformance coming.
Due?
Not so early. I thought it would have been one of the group games, but not in Leinster. Dublin need to get Brian Fenton back. Dublin have an unreal, probably front 8, right? Now the 6, they could pick 6 that would win an All-Ireland up front. Right, so you have Con, Costello, Small, Bugler, Scully. Am I missing someone? Kilkenny.
Okay, sold.
They have an All-Ireland winning forward line.
Yeah.
Midfield needs work.
Do you think Fenton
needs work.
Do you think Fenton would take the call?
Ooh, I don't think so. It's his first year out. It's easier probably. It's easier from Fenton probably reaching out than it would be Desi reaching out to him.
If you're Desi, would you be checking in with him all the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I'd be getting on to him now. Because put it this way, right? Let's say he gets Fenton back in now, right? They go to Mayo or Galway in the first game, away, and they win that game. That's a massive start to the All-Ireland series. Then they go on and they beat, if they do, right, they go on and beat either Donegal or Armagh, right? What are you thinking as a Dublin player then?
It feels like a big if right now.
Yeah, it does, you're right. But that's the carrot. That's what I'd be saying. See the pain and suffering you have from this Meath game? See the depression you're going through over the next couple of days? Use that pain. And we'll all heal together. And how will we do that? We win the first 2 games. Win the first game. And win the first game, then we're going, right, okay, hold on a second. Let's take another scalp here. And then you play Derry in the last game, and all of a sudden, the only team you have to really get over the line is who? Kerry. You beat Kerry, you've beaten them all then. You've beaten the Connacht champions to an extent.
Yeah, the other one of Armagh, Donegal might be saying, well, hang on, we'll be...
Oh, they will, but I'm talking about your confidence and your psyche from losing the game against Meath.
And is there, as a last one on all that, is there any quick way-ish way, because time's of the essence, to sort out what's going on in defence? To get mean, to get tough, to get rigid again?
Organically losing and getting beaten is the best thing that can happen to you. Strategically then, you have to break down what happened. Your matchups weren't good enough, or the preparation of the matchups probably you can look at. But really, it's one of those things where you look at you get more from losing the game than you do actually from strategically changing things.
Yeah.
That's your first foundation. That back six and everybody else out past that say we weren't good enough. And there's raw honesty in a team meeting the following couple of days. And you're saying, as a full forward, I didn't help me full back enough. And I know that's crazy because the other ends of the pitch,
No.
but it could be the pressure on the ball, it could be breaking ball around the middle from our own kickouts. There's loads of variables that feed into it. But the one thing you'd say is, I'd be very shocked if Dublin have that defensive performance again this year.
Well, then the concluding question to that is, what does your gut tell you about how this season finishes up for Dublin? Assuming Brian Fenton says, sorry,
No.
Daisy, I'm going to Glastonbury.
Which is highly possible.
Yeah.
If that happens.
We'll if Fenton comes back, we'll ring you. We'll do an emergency chat. But say he says, no. You have what you have for this year. What does your gut tell you about what Dublin can manage here?
I don't think it changes. I think winning an All-Ireland is a big ask for this group because of the dynamic changes.
Yeah.
16 new players, the leaders leaving, the evolution of the group. I think the less fear of other counties of Dublin, that's all gone. So I would have been optimistic if I was to say that they could have got to a possible All-Ireland semi-final, possibly a final. Do I think they could win it? It's a big ask.
Yeah.
I think there's teams there now that are smelling blood for Dublin GA, you know.
We can't go around the house to all the games because it's not possible to see them all. I know for the BBC you did cover Donegal's win against Down and Clonus, 119 to 16 points, so a 6-point win. What did you make of Donegal in this game?
Probably in second gear, maybe third gear. I think Down just lacked a little bit of belief. They could have clawed it back a couple of times. They had goal opportunities, 2-point opportunities, and they just lacked belief. You know, you had a team that struggled against another Ulster team in Fermanagh who hadn't won an Ulster game in 7 years, who should have really won that game, and Down were allowed to come back in and get over the line. And I think Conor Laverty nailed it in the head after the game, and he said, look, we're not there yet to be competing against a Donegal, but we're bridging the gap. And I think Donegal are shown the strength in their squad, are really good in regards to scores from coming from everywhere, and have a brilliant keeper in Patton and work really well on their kickouts, but defensively are shown a lot of gaps.
Right.
A lot of gaps.
Not like them.
Which is not like them. So like every team, the games I've seen Donegal this year, it's as simple as this. The opposition put 5 or 6 players into the full forward line. The opposition then start playing the ball around the arc or in around the 45-metre line, and the Donegal players are kind of facing the players that are out there, so they're not looking behind to see where the gaps are. And then you'll see little pop balls in on top of the D to where the ref generally stands, and they've players coming off it. Now, I would have said I've seen that before. Surely McGuinness will sort this out, but they didn't against Down, and Down exposed it. Like, players were running out from the full forward line, running away from the goal, getting the ball, and then players were coming off those players to get shots and scores. So, as I said, Down, if they were a bit more confident, they would have got a Pam goal in the first half. The second half, there was another. You see the top teams doing it, giving it to the man, and one extra pass where there's a Pam goal. Donegal done it with McBarty against Down. And if Down had that little bit of confidence, they would have done that. And that 6 points is a massive difference.
Yeah.
But they just didn't see belief in Down.
Interesting. Connacht final this Sunday, Munster final, Kerry against Clare. Did you catch any of Kerry Cork?
No, I was actually working that day.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we'll get another look at them, but obviously Cork pushed them close.
Cork do it all the time. Like, you could never, like, I've played Cork over the years, particularly in around 2010, and they would have been, when I first started, I was like, geez, you know, these are good, like big units running through the middle, had Gilden, had all of these, Paul Kerrigan, all these top players, and that evolution stopped, and then you had this kind of couple of years where it was kind of yo-yoing. But every year we played Cork in friendlies, aren't like that. they were impressive. And it's like when they play a Kerry or maybe like a Dublin that they actually step up and go, here, let's have a good go at this.
It was one kind of, it was quarter final. It's the structure so hard to keep track of, but there was one time about 4, 5, 6 years ago where Cork.
COVID year, was it?
Maybe, yeah. And obviously,
Kerry.
Against Yee.
Oh, against us, right, yeah.
For a good half hour, 40 minutes, they really put it up to you. But like Cork weren't in a good place at the time, but it was, they have that in them. Anyway, there's no point talking about things you haven't seen. Just on Galway Mayo, Galway are generally regarded as favourites here. People keep saying quietly going about their business, Galway. There's nothing quiet about them. Like, they're screaming out as the full package here if everything goes well for them. How do you see that one? Is there anything in Mayo here?
A Connacht final will definitely level, whether it was Mayo, Roscommon, Galway, Roscommon, Mayo, whatever those three teams play each other, it kind of levels it out, like,
narrow it a bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I do still think Galway are a little bit ahead. I think Galway are still using that little bit of hurt that they had to losing the All-Ireland final last year, so I think that is going to drive them a little bit beyond Mayo. And yeah, I think Mayo will want to play Dublin in in the group stages down there. So no, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a tight game. But I do think Galway they just have an all-around package for me at the minute.
Do a bit, and that hurt is useful. Was it Joyce said last year? We'll regret losing that final till the day we die. That gets you through winter training.
Well, it goes back to that thing of you heal together.
It's a strange dynamic whereby the winners are in the quote-unquote group of death with losers of Ulster final, Dublin, Derry.
Yeah.
You can't think about that, I presume, in the final. You don't. No one says, here, let's take the easier group one.
Yeah, but if I was Mayo, I would be thinking, like, they'd obviously be thinking of winning that game because Galway's a big enough team, big enough challenge, sorry. If you're playing a weaker team, then you can kind of look beyond that. But I do think if you're going to do something, right, beating Galway, let's say, then go on and beat Dublin at home, and then your last two games is one of the big strong Ulster teams and Derry. I think, like Dublin, that gives you a lot going into the All-Ireland series, and that's what probably Mayo need. They don't really, the years gone by, they've had the belief, even if they've struggled in Connacht, they'd still have the belief to go on and get to the All-Ireland semi-final or final. Yeah. I don't know if this team has it, and they could get it from coming out of that group stage and after beating Galway.
It's kind of interesting your perspective on all this, because so almost with Dublin and Mayo, who are kind of very unsure of themselves, the player in you actually eyes up the tougher route, because unless we beef ourselves up belief-wise and test ourselves at that stage, then come the big day in a semi-final, we're at nothing. So it's not about dodging trouble. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. People might think of it the other way, but that's that's how kind of a champion is made.
I think organically we would have. I don't know what it is. I think it's, for me, it's, even when I was working with Bowes, I'd be sitting down with lads and we would be chatting away about, Jesus, you'd have a lad in front of you who was saying, look, we're very close to the relegation zone. I'm like, yeah, but you're also 3 points away from being in the top four, like, and that's just, I think that's a programming in an individual. It's a programming of optimistic views and versus pessimistic. So Dublin and Mayo, as traditionally as counties, will want to win an All-Ireland. That's the standard, and same as Kerry and other counties. But to think, the benefit of losing to Connacht is that, we won't be in that group. Yeah. Like, that's not, I don't think, the way Mayo would think.
Yeah. Really interesting. Very last one. I should have put this in at the end of the Dublin chat, but the way it was like Dublin will win 8 All-Irelands out of every 10 forever, and there's a conveyor belt and all that.
1 out of 3, I think it was.
Whatever it was.
8 out of 10. Jesus.
But the sense was like, this will never end. There'll be another batch behind this batch. But then in more recent years, people said, no. Trust me, we've been looking at the underage teams for the last 4 or 5 years. This is going to stop. Is that yours? You'd know the Dublin scene better than I. Has it sort of stopped? Is there just not the talent there to keep kicking on and have another win 5 out of the next 15 or 10 All-Irelands kind of generation? Is it not there?
Yes, I would agree with that. On the grounds that the last All-Ireland we won recently was because we brought don't disrespect the players that are there.
No, but it was the
we
last
brought
dance.
a load of lads in.
It was one more for the road, kind of.
Yeah, and we brought the lads back in, and that was massive. Gilroy goes back in, all of that happens. And so we have a core group of leaders there that have probably 3 to 5 years if they're healthy and they look after themselves. You have Kilkenny, Bugler, probably a little bit longer than 5 years actually. They're still young. Coslow's a little bit older. But the group dynamic, these younger lads coming through, the tail end of the young lads coming through now won't have the experience of playing or winning All Irelands.
And they're not kind of super talented, that they can just kind of talent their way to it, is what I'm asking.
It's gonna have to, yeah.
In a way that Con was ready-made, generational kind of types. You haven't just printed and franked another 20 of them and they're coming through and it's an endless supply. It's taken a bit of a dip.
It goes, and this might be the total wrong way of saying it, but it's like in life when you have someone has a tough life and their kids have an easy life, and then I might be absolutely tearing that apart there, but then the easy life then becomes a tough life, and it causes a cycle. Like we had 16 years of a drought, created this energy and drive. The Blue Wave won every 3. The county board do massive amount of work behind the scenes, and the clubs, GPOs, and then we start seeing different structures being put in and cultures being built from different managers, and then all of a sudden we get over the line once, and then we start building, and we have a brilliant management team, and then we've got these unbelievable lads that are buying into the culture, adding energy every year. We bring in 1 or 2, and then what happens then, I would imagine, is the foot gets taken off the pedal a little bit. You can see big players in the structures of Dublin GA change as well. John Costello being a massive one.
Yeah.
Even like things like Mossy Quinn moving on to Shelbourne. All of these things changing, and you don't see then, hold on, who's the next manager?
Yeah.
Who's set up to be the next man in here? Like, albeit, let's say you're happy with Desi, but there was always a contingency there. I don't know where that is now. I just don't see it. Maybe they are working on it. I just don't see it. So I don't see even many ex-players getting involved in squads, and that's because probably they have busy families and their young families and everything else. But what will happen now is we'll probably, which we don't want, which I certainly don't want, is Dublin will have a drought. There will be a drought, and that drought will create pain and suffering, and we'll have that cycle again.
Interesting, yeah. Because people thought, no. They've harnessed population, there'll never be a drought again, but maybe. Tell
that to Meath.
Yeah.
You have half of Dublin in it anyway at the minute.
Yeah, I saw, yeah.
Do you know what? The humour, we have to mention the humour in GAA. We have to get a bit more humour back into it.
Why? What are we?
Well, I had to crack by saying that there's a lot of dubs in Ashbourne and Ratoath and everything else.
How did that go down?
Some people, it was great to see some people going, relax, there's a bit of crack and there's a bit of humour and banter. And then there was a lot of people going, oh, you're a sour grape and all this. I'm just like, chill out, will you? It's just a bit of crack, But yeah, I've always said that to Rory O'Connor, Rory Stories. I've always said to him, you're a dub at heart because you live in Ashbourne. So I honed in on that a little bit by having a banter.
Well,
and
you can get a fresh wave.
Need a bit more of that.
You can get a fresh wave of abuse now.
Yeah, I'll get it now as well. Yeah.
So it's all shaping up to an interesting couple of weeks. Philly McMahon, brilliant. Thanks, Mel.
Thanks for having me.